You're about to discover 7 reasons you should be looking at 2022 and not 2021 cruises, including the surprising news that the cruise lines agree with this too. I'm Gary Bembridge, and in this episode of Tips for Travellers, I look at why booking 2022 cruising vacations and avoiding committing to 2021 right now and waiting, no matter how eager you are to go cruising, is your absolute best bet by far. Probably the most compelling reason for focusing booking for 2022 is the cruise lines themselves are actually recommending it. There are a couple of things to note that have developed over the last couple of days and weeks. Firstly, at a recent travel agent virtual cruise showcase arranged by the Cruise Line Association, the lines were telling travel agents to encourage travelers to book itineraries earliest from autumn-winter 2021 and to focus more on 2022 cruises. So why are they doing that? Well, simply because they are much more certain that their advertised cruises will actually be able to run by then. For example, Peter Shanks, now he's the managing director of Silversea Cruises, he was very explicit and said that travel agents should focus on promoting and selling their cruises from the autumn of 2021, and he recommended more early 2022 because they would be confident they would be operating them as planned. Now, this also explains why the cruise lines have been putting 2022 and 2023 itineraries on sale to give us as travelers and of course agents further out cruises to focus on. Secondly, the cruise lines simply don't know when for certain they will be able to resume sailing in 2021. No one really knows. There's no agreed date in North America, nor in major cruise embarkation countries like the UK and Spain. There's no agreement on lifting bans in places like Canada and Australia. Now, there is a process for return to sail in most of these countries, like the US CDC framework for conditional sailing, but there's no clarity or certainty on the dates when cruises will really honestly start up in the UK, in the US, in Spain, Australia, and so on. Thirdly, even once they can start sailing, all the lines have been really clear that they'll be staggering their fleet return to service through most of 2021. It will not be one big bang and all the ships come back to service. However, they are still listing and selling cruises right across their fleets from the first date they hope to start the very first ship or ships sailing. So that cruise you may be eyeing for 2021 that currently shows it's running may not be in the end. No one really knows for 2021 yet. Norwegian and Carnival groups, for example, they say they only envisage all their ships being back sailing by autumn 2021. So it's clear that many advertised cruises won't run. Now, others like Fred Olsen Cruises, they're already starting to be much more upfront and much more explicit. They have laid up one of their ships, the Braemar, already until 2022, as this one's used to sail more distant, more fly cruise, more multi-country itineraries. They've cancelled all 2021 cruises for that ship, and they will only bring back ships in 2021 that run no-fly, local departures, they cruise to domestic or ports that are close to the UK. Fourthly, it's also worth considering, as you think about timing, that the major cruise groups have been raising cash to enable them to survive without any cruises running through to summer 2021. So that may also be an indication of their thinking. So if you want to plan your vacation time, your budget with maximum certainty, pushing it out to the earliest end of the year, 2021, and even better into 2022 is definitely your best option. Don't just take my word for it, the lines are saying it too. It's also, therefore, not a surprise that the lines are making it even easier for you to book cruises in 2022 using your future cruise credit from cancelled trips. So if you have future cruise credit, do not feel pressurized to use it to cruise in 2021, which of course had been the case for quite some time. The cruise lines are allowing you to use your future cruise credit for 2022 cruises, and some, like MSC Cruises, Carnival Cruise Line, for 2023 cruises already. Now, many cruisers, including me for a time, think that the expiry date of our future cruise credit is by when you have to have cruised. Now, this is not always the case, so check really carefully with your line. Most cruise lines only require you to have used your future cruise credits to make a booking before the expiry date, and usually it can be for any cruise on sale at the time you book. So certainly in 2022, and as I mentioned, for some lines 2023. Now, there are some exceptions at the time of recording. So Royal Caribbean and Holland America, you have to have actually cruised before your credit expires. But again, that date is well into 2022. So from my research and looking around, it looks to me like virtually all cruise lines enable you to use future cruise credit, no matter when it was issued, to sail sometime in 2022. So consider that and your ability to use that if you want the absolute certainty to escape that cycle of booking, cancellations, and rebooking. Use your future cruise credit for 2022. Another reason to hold off booking a cruise until 2022 is there is no certainty when all the protocols being put in place for cruising to resume are going to be lifted, many of which I've seen lots of cruisers object to, and they only want to cruise when these things are lifted. Vaccination is being seen as the cruise lines, as I've covered in a past episode, as being really key to being able to lift many of the limitations and rules that are being put in place. Now, although we are all optimistic that vaccination programs are going to roll out really quickly in 2021, to be honest, we just don't know for certain the timescale right now. It could be quite some time into 2021 before these programs have really been rolled out across all the age groups. My other thinking is, with the attitude towards cruising being generally pretty negative and pretty cautious by the various authorities, I would suspect that permission to lift the protocols on cruise ships will be slower than many of us hope. I believe that's going to happen even as vaccinations roll out. I think there's going to be really cautious timing on lifting of the protocols. So if you object to any of the protocols for any reason, you should only book as far out as possible, the end of 2021, more sensibly into 2022, to increase the chance that they've been eased or lifted to your satisfaction. So if you object to testing, compulsory mask wearing, physical distancing, which means you have to reserve places to dine, attend events, sit around the pool, go to the theatre, and so on. If you object to cruise line only excursions in ports, venues like saunas and nightclubs being closed, events like pool parties not being held, then do not book during at least, I would say, the first 9 months of 2021, and more realistically, focus on 2022. Until you know for sure that these have been lifted, be cautious about when you book. Now, until the likelihood of passengers contracting coronavirus or even showing these symptoms is really low, you do need to consider the risk of your cruise being truncated, even if it's able to run when you start booking. So the risk of any outbreak is likely to be lower the more further out you look, when the combination of, vaccine adoption, ever more effective testing protocols, just the general level of the virus circulating is much lower. Now, the reason I'm saying that is important is, as all the return to cruise protocols, they currently say that if there are suspected cases of coronavirus on board, usually above a small threshold, the cruise will be curtailed and has to return to the embarkation port. So even if the cases end up being false positives, such as we saw for Sea Dream in Norway, Uncruise in Alaska, Paul Gauguin in French Polynesia, and even more recently on Royal Caribbean Quantum of the Seas out of Singapore, cruises still get cut short even if it ends up being a false positive. And of course, better track and trace means only those who came into contact with the infected passenger or passengers gets really strictly isolated. Everyone gets quarantined in their cabins until it can be more land-based testing, and you get sent home. So your cruise gets short if there's a suspected outbreak on board. So waiting further out into the end of 2021 and into 2022 should reduce the risk of this. So it's another thing, of course, to consider, and another reason for booking further out, just the chance of that happening. Of course, if you want to do a cruise longer than 7 nights that leave, arrive, or call on ports in the United States, then you do have to wait until 2022 to book those. The CDC has banned longer cruises at this stage until at least the end of November 2021. Lines currently have adopted different approaches, so be careful when you're looking at what's on sale. Some have stopped selling longer cruises, hoping over time the CDC will relax the ruling. They haven't cancelled them. Others have cancelled them and put different cruises in their place. So for example, Seabourn, they've changed all their Alaska season into 7-night trips. Some, like Windstar, have gone even further, and they've pulled every single cruise out of the USA for 2021 and gone to different regions. So if you want longer cruises out of the US or according to the US, you do have to book further out into 2022. Also consider booking cruises only at the end of 2021 and into 2022 if they involve flying to a foreign destination and include calling on multiple countries. It's really uncertain when countries will open and what restrictions they will, of course, be putting in place. We're all probably being over-optimistic at how fast this will all change in 2021. I think I am. I think the first half of the year will be fine, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Now, so this is really especially true if you have big bucket list destination cruises. These could be once in a lifetime cruises. And I would say you want to be confident that you can see everything, do everything, not have to be constrained or follow things like wearing masks, restricted excursions, and so on. So as I mentioned earlier, no one knows when countries will be able to open freely to tourism without restrictions, testing, requirements for vaccines, or whatever. Most countries are hoping and saying that by summer things will be more easy. But as we learned through 2020, things end up being volatile, they are unpredictable, and what we've learned is they are just much slower to happen than we expect. So if you have a multiple country trip that's a big bucket list one in mind, I would definitely recommend booking at least the end of 2021, but probably 2022, which is what the lines are suggesting. Focus much more on domestic and close to home cruises in 2021 if you are wanting to focus on that. Because once the cruise lines are actually sailing again and offer trips that they know they can deliver, I think we can all revisit our 2021 plans with certainty then. We saw that in Italy and Germany, because when the lines were given the okay to sail, there were only specific ports and places they could go. So what they did is they scrapped existing cruises and they developed and they put on sale brand new trips based on the limitations. So once the lines get the full okay in 2021, they will launch new trips that they can absolutely deliver. This is the time to then book 2021. Wait for those new cruises. For example, UK lines are working on UK-only ports with UK destination cruises for when they can start sailing in 2021, because they think both the authorities and travellers will prefer those. We've heard the lines sailing out of US ports talking about creating new cruises focused on private Caribbean islands for a while in 2021 once they resume. Most of 2021 cruises, once they resume, will almost certainly be new cruises, I believe, from what we've seen. So wait for those and focus on 2022 right now to book those more back to usual itineraries and plans, and then revisit 2021 when you see what's really available. Another great reason for looking at 2022 is the lines are really keen to get people to commit to 2022 and beyond, as they are also sure they can deliver them. They want to get your deposits in, they want to get commitments locked in and not have all that uncertainty. So there are many fantastic deals and incentives to encourage bookings further out. The first few months of the year is known as wave season, and this is where lines traditionally already run promotions for cruises. Because so many people book their vacations this time of the year. Expect lots of deals and offers for 2022 and 2023. A great reason to be booking, as you will find amazing opportunities and savings by looking further ahead. I hope that's given you something to think about as you plan your vacations budgets and all the different plans for 21 and 22. I have hundreds more Tips for Travellers episodes packed full of cruising updates, tips and advice. So why not enjoy another one right now?